exit polls get it right this time? Who is winning Maharashtra and Jharkhand? And are the polls even on the same page? I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo Story. On the program today, we will be looking at the polls on Maharashtra and Jharkhand. Health warning, as always, especially given past experience. The results of the actual elections will be known only on the 23rd. But in terms of the exit polls, we have this intriguing situation where five exit polls are forecasting a BJP-led win in the state of Maharashtra, while three are forecasting a hung assembly. In Jharkhand, several polls are talking about an extremely tight race. In fact, C Voter hasn't even called all the seats because they say the election is so tight. But Access by India has forecast a clear, significant, and big win for the JMM Congress alliance. So, not for the first time, we're all confused. And we're going to try and understand these exit poll numbers and whether we should even believe them and how to read them with a very distinguished panel this evening. Let me introduce them now on the program as we look at both the numbers and the politics. Dilip Cherian, brand guru, image consultant, political analyst, is with us. Always a pleasure. Abhijit Iyer, Mitra, political analyst and senior fellow with the IPCS, is with us. Welcome, Abhijit. Tejas Mehta, old colleague and friend, senior journalist from Maharashtra, is with us. Welcome back, Tejas. And our numbers man, our political pundit, Kartikeya Batra, who certainly spent in this election more time on the ground than I have, is with us as well. Welcome, everybody. Kartikeya, because you're the only person who understands numbers as both a science and an art. Help me understand how five polls can talk about a BJP-led alliance winning in Maharashtra. Three polls forecast a hung assembly. What should we? How do we make sense of what's going on here?
So, Barkha, I think that's a very fair question. But with all due respect, first of all, a lot of these agencies are new. I mean, some of them are kind of new in the sense that we are hearing from them for the second or the third time, and some of them are very new even to me. So we are not very aware of the methodologies that they are using. But let's assume that everybody is using the same methodology or there is some semblance of sanity there. In a highly localized election, it is very difficult to call seats. And everybody from the field, because I was more in Jharkhand and less in Maharashtra, I did not actually cover Maharashtra on the field, but I was able to go to Jharkhand and we'll talk about that later. But as Tejas will tell you, if it's a hyper-localized election, it is very difficult to predict seats unless you cover all 288 seats. It's as if it's a collection of 288 elections. If it's a wave election, what happens is that you pick up regional trends and the prediction of the seats becomes easier, or it is closer to being more accurate. But the moment it becomes a hyper-local election, it becomes very difficult to account for very seat-specific factors. The other thing to understand is that the polls have closed at 5 p.m. and people were still queuing up, and by 6:30 some of these exit poll numbers came out. So once again, I don't know how they were able to pull this off, but it clearly seems that it is a very tight contest. And my own sense is it is a very seat by seat Hasawa typical election where even on counting day, we probably might go down to the wire. I can also talk about Jharkhand with some more authority because I was on the field. Even there, Barkha, there was no wave apart from two factors. In fact, it was a very thakawa, hopeless election because people were essentially saying that we will vote because we have to vote and we will vote for the party that we've been traditionally voting for because there is no nayapan in the election. There were only two factors that were creating some kind of buzz. One was the emergence of Jairam Mahato, JLKM. He is a young leader. And in certain areas of North Chota Nagpur and Santhal, he was creating a buzz, especially amongst the youth. And the second factor was the JMM's welfare schemes. There is a Maiya Samman Yojana scheme, which is like a Ladki Bahini Yojana, where 1,000 rupees are being given to women. And in a state like Jharkhand, more than Maharashtra, where in large parts of the state, there's tribal women who live in poverty and, the disparities are really high. That means a lot. And one thing that I can tell you, having covered 25 of the 81 seats across all five regions, that there is penetration of that policy, that it has reached a lot of the people. Plus, there is electricity bill waiver. Now, again, I'm not a big fan of these doles, not all of them, but it seems to have worked. So, if at all there is any excitement, it's because of these two factors. But otherwise, even in Jharkhand, there was a very seat-by-seat sort of fight. For example, there's a lot of buzz in the Kolhan, South Jharkhand area that Champai Soren has defected. So will he have an impact on the whole region? Forget about the region. If he can save his own seat and his son's seat, that will be a big victory because it is that localized.
Right. So you have given us an overview, and the sort of, as they say, net picture is that both states have highly localized elections, and it's going to be tough, therefore, to actually for pollsters to project the seats with authority. But Tejas, if we turn our attention back to Maharashtra, Kartikeya has given us a sort of bird's eye view of both Maharashtra and Jharkhand. Let's go state by state quickly. Let's start with Maharashtra. That's the big one, not to undermine Jharkhand. And of course, we know from Jammu and Kashmir and Haryana that the state you think is the small one turns around to be the surprise one. But let's stay with Maharashtra for a while. If you look at the sort of aggregate story, I'm not talking arithmetically, but aggregate story from what the polls are saying about Maharashtra, you see an extremely tight election, an extremely hyper localized election, but you do see an edge to the BJP. I'm calling it an edge because though 5 polls are giving them the win, 3 are giving them a hung assembly, and the win isn't a dramatic win. So I'm just being careful here. Tejas, what do you make of these numbers?
Well, in this, hyper localized election, if you take out all the pluses, I mean, you make a average of the pluses and the minuses. That edge you're calling is called Ladli Behna, and that is what is pushing, in my opinion, the BJP. And that, I think C voter has done a good thing to hold on, because if any, I have from my BJP sources and Congress sources, they are all saying, hold on, let us look at how the women have voted really, because this is the key scheme on which the BJP is pushing the election. Every statement of the Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis, Ladli Behna, Ladli Bhaiya, Ladli Kisan, they're using with the word Ladli everything now. And of course, this was taken from Madhya Pradesh. But in Madhya Pradesh, it was an old scheme. They had only increased before the election the amount given to beneficiaries. Here, this has come right before the election. I mean, I would have hesitated to call it Revdi, welfare, whatever you call it. That is what is pushing the BJP. Because if you look at Vidarbha, that was, I would say, Vidarbha in this election and perhaps in previous elections also has somewhat become, the swing state in a sense, which of the US elections, which tell us in Maharashtra who is going to win. The Congress did very well during the Lok Sabha election, and that is why they could get many more seats than the BJP. And I think because of, I mean, there are a lot of issues in Vidarbha, farmer suicides, MSP for soybean, cotton. There are many issues, but Ladli Behna has got them, much closer. It has reduced the gap much more.
Can I ask you,
Sure,
Tejas,
sure.
though, because I have a question there, and then I'll
Sure.
come to Abhijit and Dilip for the big picture if these trends, as it were, turn into actuality. In the Lok Sabha, the BJP got a knocking. The BJP's own supporters weren't happy, for example, with the alliance with Ajit Pawar. There was a huge amount of sympathy for Uddhav Thackeray. It hasn't been so long since the Lok Sabha. What's changed?
6 months. 6 months has changed a lot of things, and that's exactly what I'm saying. I mean, this scheme, it has brought money directly in the hands of women. Of course, there are those who have also been saying that inflation is so high, you're taking from one hand, giving in the other, so it doesn't make such a big difference. And Maharashtra, women are much, it's urbanized, almost 45%, I think, urbanized. So women are more smarter. They would take whatever benefits they get, but vote, as per their choice. But ultimately, the focus has become women in these voters, because it is on this scheme that a lot runs for the BJP. And for the BJP, this scheme is more important than anybody else, because this, puts, it sets the trend for now UP. So Maharashtra is
Interesting.
absolutely essential for BJP.
Okay, so that's a common thread that's emerging in a way between Jharkhand, which Kartikeya describes as a somewhat thakela absence of a wave election. That's not tallying with what Axis is saying about Jharkhand, but it's the only poll saying that about Jharkhand right now, if I'm right. Quickly, Kartikeya, I want to come to Abhijit. Yeah.
But Barkha, even Madhya Pradesh was a Thakela election, but something
Correct.
swung it for Shivraj Singh Chauhan, and that was the
Correct.
undercurrent was the Ladli Bahina. So what I'm saying is that On the surface, at times it looks like a Sakela election, but there is an undercurrent. And as Tejas is rightly saying, if the X factor in Maharashtra is the scheme, so is this slew of freebies in Jharkhand, which is the common denomination across the state. But if you go region by region, overtly, apart from the common reference of job parcha leak and lack of job
Okay.
opportunities and महंगाई, there is no such thing कि इसको लेकर आना है या इसको हटाना है.
Okay, interesting. Now I want to get Dilip and Abhijit on the politics of this, right? The numbers, Kartikeya is better placed. Tejas knows the ground politics in Maharashtra, but there are big national implications, particularly to what happens in Maharashtra. But even in Jharkhand, it would mean that Hemant Soren's arrest did not, if it's so tight, didn't generate any kind of mass sympathy. Certainly, Dilip, I'll start with you, then Abhijit. Go ahead.
Karthik is
Can we
saying
unmute?
has,
Yeah,
um,
yeah. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I think
Yeah.
what Karthik is saying has enormous resonance with me. That this is an election which looks like it's being fought constituency to constituency, which also brings the point as to whether the issue of batenge to katenge kind of stuff, which has been discussed ad nauseum on mainstream media, is going to have that impact. Because if indeed Ladli Behna type of freebies for women is working, and if it's going to be fought constituency by constituency, then these so-called national issues are not going to dominate. However, having said that, I also think that this is an election where let's look at what the numbers finally come out to be. But if the young have come out to vote, then I think that what happened yesterday with the cash for votes kind of example and the AI generated chaos which was created at night might have what I would call a last mile connect to young people who might have seen this and be influenced by it. So the questions we need to ask is, are elections becoming more regional? And do these regional satraps and regional forces decide who's going to eventually emerge in the state? Because at the end of the day, they are voting for a government which is in the state. So will national elections dominate and issues dominate? Or will it be a completely new election this time around? And will the old counting not matter so much? So I think that what I'm seeing so far, and none of us are relying on exit polls at this point of time, but there's no doubt that the polls themselves may not be telling us very much of the story, because one, they seem to be done by a whole bunch of newbies. They seem to have been done almost like instant coffee, not palatable in the least, except for singeing you. And most importantly, I think that they've missed out on what actually is happening on the ground, constituency by constituency.
Interesting. Abhijit, I think the question is this. Are voters responding very differently to Lok Sabha and Assembly elections, as they often do? Or has something changed in 6 months, as Tejas argues? Is that change a positive change, like the Ladli Behna emerging in a sense as the X factor? Or is there something else going on here? The one interesting thing in both Haryana and Maharashtra, if Maharashtra holds for the BJP-led alliance, Abhijit, is that they haven't been Modi-led campaigns, which I find quite interesting. Abhijit, go ahead.
Um, Thanks, Barkha. I just want to caveat this saying I'm known as the election panotti. I usually get everything wrong. So, that being the caveat in the first place. Uh, I agree with Kartikeya completely. I thought this was just me sitting in Delhi, not seeing any kind of a statewide issue either in Jharkhand or Maharashtra. But that very clearly seems to be the case. I would say that this entire Supriya Sule controversy with the uh, AI audio things that have come out, as well as this whole Vinod Tavade controversy where it turned out he never had the money to distribute or whatever, have all turned out to be these last minute desperate attempts at getting votes by outraging the voter on something or the other. But just to macro that slightly, you know, I want to point out in the national election, in the general election, the polling agencies actually got the percentages quite right. The problem was extrapolation of those percentage to the seats and the victories in each of those seats. right? Even in Haryana, which was horribly wrong for everybody, the polling did pick up that there was a last minute jump over the last month or so for the BJP. It's just that
Yeah.
they could not transpose those numbers onto exact figures. Even had they transposed it onto exact figures, I don't think it would have cut the ice, because in 19 of those seats in Haryana, if you add up the BJP's victory margin, it was just 21,000 votes cumulatively on all those 19 seats, if you add them up, right? Again, very hard to poll in a place like India. Third thing is, remember, the BJP went alone in the national election. That's the big difference, to answer your question, between the center and state elections. Here, the RSS is back in the fold. The RSS kind of boycotted the national election. I don't know if, whatever term you want to use, boycott,
Yeah,
sabotage.
not boycott, but didn't fully give it, didn't fully support.
Exactly. Whereas with Haryana, they
Underwhelming support.
actually took it up on a
Yeah,
war footing. And from what I'm hearing, Maharashtra also, they've taken it up on a war footing. And
right.
as we've seen, the RSS actually brings in a lot more than the BJP by itself brings in. Third is that in Haryana, factionalism, because it's so close to Delhi, factionalism was crushed quite heavily by the BJP. In Maharashtra, that factionalism is so rampant, everybody within the BJP, everybody's been trying to sabotage everybody else within all the factions in Maharashtra. Fourth is, in Haryana, there was also missteps by the Congress. This whole Jatitude, Jatraj, whatever you want to call it, thing, it created counter consolidation. So it wasn't just a BJP victory, it was a Congress loss. The Congress created the conditions for its own loss in Haryana. I have not seen, at least as far as I'm checking, maybe Kartikeya can correct me, I am not seeing, or Tejas or Dilip, I have not seen the Congress make any faux pas like that, or any kind of consolidation, counter consolidation equation in Maharashtra or Jharkhand for that matter.
That's an
Even JM.
interesting point. That's interesting. And I'll come to Kartikeya and Dilip on that in just a moment. But Tejas, I have a different question for you. And my question is this: neither side declared a chief minister, sort of chief ministerial contender, right? Has Eknath Shinde, were it to be, as 5 of the 8 say, a Mahayuti win, has Eknath Shinde now come into his own as a force, or is it all still up in the air with as strong a leader as Devendra Fadnavis as a colleague in the BJP?
Last time we were discussing this with Varun was there, and he was
Yeah.
insisting that, Eknath Shinde very clearly said that, sorry, Fadnavis said that Eknath Shinde is leading us. And I've seen in many interviews after that, Fadnavis has repeatedly said that Eknath Shinde is the chief minister going to the elections. After that, we will see. I mean, how can anybody predict what's going to really happen? So I really, do not believe. I think it's a good strategy not to go with a chief minister, because at the end of the day, the BJP knows they want to be in power. They do not want to repeat the same thing what happened in 2019, and maybe until they can be on their own in Maharashtra, the chief minister's post may not be theirs. They'll have to play second fiddle, even if they are the bigger party, and that is the new election, realities we possibly could be seeing. One thing which Abhijit talked about is this factionalism. We are discounting, and I think I did see a pattern in all the polls, exit polls, that the rebel factor has been almost like as if it's not going to have an impact. There are going to be many rebels who are going to be playing spoiler, and they're going to be a smaller amount, but still going to be winning. And the average in last 5-6 elections in Maharashtra has been anywhere between 25 to 30 seats, which independents and rebels have won. At the moment, I think I'm seeing only 11. Now 11, it's very very low. I would certainly not go with, I think one which went to 195 as high for the BJP. One went 85 for the Congress. I think it's all ridiculous. It gave BJP a swing of six this thing above the Congress. That would be above 200 for them. So that,
Yeah.
I think, let's check out the extremes. I think a local Maharashtrian, I don't know the exact poll, the name, but they have got it closer. And to me, this looks like a hung assembly, and independents or rebels could play some sort of role now. And this could be after a long time, we are going to see a vote which is not decisive in any way.
So here's the question, and here's the political question, Dilip, and then I'll come to Kartikeya to better understand the numbers that Tejas has just said. If it is a hung assembly, it would actually be in line with everybody's political sort of basic understanding that this is highly localized, hyper localized, nobody's win. But whenever an election is hyper localized, the BJP usually does better at managing it. There's the RSS point that Abhijit has made, which is a correct point, that the RSS is back in the game. Uh, will the political implication of a hung assembly type situation be less bad news for the opposition, or is it, as they say in Hindi, jo jeeta wahi sikandar? I mean, is a hung assembly an advantage for the BJP compared to the opposition?
I think the hung assembly is an advantage to the opposition rather than the BJP. The BJP needs a clear and very defined win. If there is a hung assembly, all bets are off on the nature of what alliances are going to be like. So you may see huge swaps, you may hear of massive defections, all that would happen, of leaders and their parties and rumps of parties. So I think politically, the hung assembly is going to be good news for the opposition, because if you see this kind of inevitable horse trading post elections, if there is no distinct pattern of victory, then people will be left with the feeling that this is the kind of politics that we have not had to see for the last several elections in India, at least. We've always had fairly decisive victories, and I think victories of any kind for any party, but they have been fairly decisive. So I would say that a hung assembly is game for the opposition rather than the BJP.
Interesting. Kartikeya, we also do now have an update that both Access My India and See Voter, which despite all the debates around exit polls, are perhaps the two identifiably
Yes.
recognized pollsters, have decided to release Maharashtra data tomorrow. They are not doing an instant turnaround on the numbers, which seems to suggest that it's not a one way or the other kind of trend that's emerging. They need time to study those numbers.
No, Barkha, also it's 288 seats. So, I mean,
Yes.
it's hardly any time
Yes.
to study. And you're right that if there was one secular pattern across the state would have been easier to predict. But I will add just one more nuance to what Dilip sir was saying. It depends which kind of independents win. Certain independents have been fielded by parties themselves. So, as Tejas will tell you, in Ramtek, for example, if the Congress independent wins, they will join the Congress. There are other seats in places like Sangli, for example. This is what happened in the Lok Sabha election also. In places like Sangli and in Bihar and
Yeah.
Pappu Yadav. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Certain independents just politically, for their political survival, don't have a choice between the two. Their degrees of freedom are limited. Say a Muslim candidate wins, let's say. Where do you think they will go? I mean, I think that one probability is higher than the other. It's not 50-50. But then there will be some
Sure.
who will be free agents, freelancers, and then they can go wherever. And there,
Yeah.
I think maybe I think I disagree a little bit. I think the BJP, given its financial power, probably might be ahead in this.
Yeah, my commonsensical understanding is it would be advantage BJP, but in terms of national politics and where it leaves, everybody feeling psychologically.
Barkha,
Abhijit, yeah, sorry, Tejas,
Barkha,
yeah,
if
go
you
ahead.
if you want a lead, send your reporters to Surat and Guwahati.
Because that's where the MLAs are headed.
Absolutely. Somewhere they are off to, and this is happening. Chartered trains are being booked because both sides
And
are
also,
really unsure.
Yeah. Dilip,
also
sorry, you
just to
want to
clarify, when I said that if there is a hung verdict, what I meant was that the opposition has more to be pleased about. I'm not saying that from the government. So just so that
I
we are
understand.
all
I
clear.
understand.
Yeah.
You mean that they would have at least felt that they contained the BJP somewhat, is what you're trying to say. Abhijit, the larger politics. If both states deliver a hung verdict, it could still mean that a resource-rich BJP or the BJP also rules the government at the center, and that's always advantageous to those who want to, get closer to power. That's just the rule of politics. Um, but in terms of where it psychologically leaves both sides, if it's hung assembly or not a clear win or not a big win, what do you think it is?
So, with the hung assembly, especially in Maharashtra, would be a big boost for the BJP given how it performed
In the
in
Lok
the
Sabha.
in the Lok Sabha elections, right? So they'll be like, damn, we clawed back this much territory. That's fantastic for us. Number one.
Correct.
Number
Mhm.
two, it's a desperate fight for the BJP because let's be clear, there's a lot of black money in this country still. And there are four basic centers for that money laundering or whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to get into technical scholarly definitions. Gurgaon, Bombay, Bangalore, and Hyderabad.
Mm.
Bangalore and Hyderabad are under Congress control. Gurgaon, bal bal bach gaya tha for the BJP. They're not going to want to lose Maharashtra. So if it's a hung assembly, I think they will get down there and get their hands dirty much quicker than the Congress will. I think we've
Mhm.
seen the BJP is generally much more fleet footed at playing all these dirty games than the Congress is. The Congress used to be very good at it. They're not good at it anymore. And, having the government in the center really helps with these things. You can call in favors, you can issue threats, you can do all kinds of things while you're at the center. So I do believe in that case, it's advantage BJP both in terms of morale and in terms of how you swing the thing. Jharkhand up in the air.
Mm.
I won't put anything past the JMM. The JMM is very adept at doing certain things in that state. But let's see. My personal feeling, and I say this genuinely as election panoti, is the BJP is going to be on a back foot in both Maharashtra and
That's
Jharkhand.
so interesting. Why are you saying that? Because if we can just come out of these pictures of Hemant Soren, this is a very funny point, Abhijit. Because you're an election panoti, are you saying that the BJP is going to lose in both states so that you get it wrong and they actually win?
I'm I'm hoping that's the case. I'm hoping that's the case, like I was with Trump. But but I'll tell
Okay.
you why I'm saying this. It's actually the
Yeah.
way I feel. I mean, I'm not basing
Yeah.
this on anything scientific. There
Yeah.
were a lot of coordination hiccups that I saw with the BJP campaign in Maharashtra. There was
Mhm.
too much bickering even at the lower levels, a lot of friction even within the RSS and the BJP uh, ground level workers, as it were. And in Jharkhand, I was hearing absolutely nothing on the ground at all. Now, I
Mm.
don't know how to read that in terms of Jharkhand because usually I get information from ground. Now, is it, of course, it's an sort of echo chamber kind of ground source, but sometimes they can be very high fidelity in terms of friction happening within the party.
So, in a sense, you're saying the Congress didn't make faux pas, and the BJP you felt had coordination problems, and that's making you feel that despite what the numbers are suggesting, you instinctively feel the BJP will be on the back foot. Kartikeya, I know you spent some time on the ground in Jharkhand. We have 2, 3 minutes left. Let's just take quick last comments from everybody. Kartikeya, I'll start with you.
I think Barkha, again, with a little more authority on Jharkhand, I think for me at least two cases are possible. Either the NDA pulls ahead, or the
In
JMM in
in
Jharkhand,
Jharkhand,
or the JMM plus will sweep Jharkhand. Because this is going
I
to be
see.
like Madhya Pradesh, where either we are not seeing it coming, or in the Fasawa election, the NDA has the resources and the management to pull it ahead, which probably
Mhm.
the Congress could not manage in Madhya Pradesh. So for me,
Mhm.
Jharkhand. So basically, that is what even the polls are saying, that either a Fasawa victory for Jharkhand for NDA, which means 45 approximately, or the JMM plus crosses 50. Because it is not just the schemes, the JMM alliance has also formed up with the inclusion of the
Mm.
left,
Mm.
whereas the BJP is formed up with the inclusion of the AJSU. But because of the dissolution of the JVM, there is a new kind of political sort of realignment in Jharkhand this time. It's an election that we've never seen because since 2005, JVM used to be a player. So I think either of those two possibilities are there. Maharashtra, I think I'll let Tejas speak more because I wasn't on the ground. And
Yeah.
again, these numbers are not helpful at all. I mean, if at all, they're adding to the confusion.
Yeah, certainly adding to the confusion. As I said, Sea Voter and Axis are going to release Maharashtra numbers only tomorrow. Dilip, quick last thoughts. Can we unmute Dilip? Dilip, are you muted at your end? Go ahead.
No, I think that the fact that these two agencies who don't have an impeccable record of being right have decided to just wait the right out rather than feature on today's television debates is a sign that things are not what they seem they are. They are more complex, and the numbers are certainly not stacking up in one direction.
Absolutely. Abhijit, your instinct is that they are stacking up in one direction against the BJP.
No, I'm stacking them up as hung in both places, but a organizational advantage to the BJP post-election, but organizational disadvantages going into the election.
That's interesting. Tejas, I'm going to give you the closing word. Tejas, please unmute yourself. Tejas, I can't hear you. Please unmute yourself. Yeah.
I was saying it's a huge election for the BJP, as Abhijit was saying, because of black money, and of course for UP elections and the next 5 years of stability, if they want that. Secondly, I think women voters are going to play keys, so let's hold on till tomorrow. And lastly, I'm really worried about my state. Last 5 years have been awful, and we don't want to see another 5 years like that. Stability is everything one wants. Any government.
Well, I'm going to meet. Fair enough. I'm going to meet all 4 of you on the 23rd, and we'll see, Tejas, whether your wish comes true. Though I have a feeling that you're going to have to wait a few more years for the kind of stability you're talking about. Thank you so much to Dilip Cherian, to Dr. Kartikeya Batra, Abhijit, Iyer, Mitra, Tejas Mehta, and see you maybe tomorrow if the numbers do come out from C Voter and Axis, but certainly on the actual results day. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and to our audience. See you soon. Thanks for watching.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Voter Story and support independent, robust journalism.